Welcome to this physical space that tradition has named a church. We recognize we are a collection of human beings that make one community, a gathering of love and spirit, and though we are at different stages of life, we can still feel the connection that is in our spiritual DNA. We remember those who have come before us. Our ancestors are many, and their collective memories guide and direct us through all our days. We are conscious of the land we occupy is borrowed and shared. The universe has granted us a perfect place to grow our food, give us shelter, and give us space for spiritual practice. To that end, we are also conscious that we must protect the land that we borrow so that the generations to come can grow and thrive in harmony and love with the universe that is. We also recognize that the land is occupied from the first people the Europeans called Illiniwek, but who called themselves Inoka. Others have come to invade and seize, others to live in harmony and share. Our land is also baptized in the blood, sweat, and a river of tears from enslaved Africans who were forced from their ancestors to become chattel property in this land. May our spiritual practice recognize these relationships as we strive to live in harmony with our past, our present, and be forever conscious of the future we create. We are Unitarian Universalists. I am Jerry Johnson, and our speaker today is John Herndon. We begin our worship with a prelude by our accompanist, Joy Heff. The lit chalice suggests the transformations that take place when we are held within religious community. When we light the chalice in worship, we illuminate a world that we feel called upon to serve with love and sense of justice. As Jillian lights our chalice, please join in the chalice lighting words on your screen. we hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage.
Our opening words this morning are from Rainer Maria Rilke. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not seek the answers which cannot be given you, because you would not be able to live with them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer.
Please join in singing our first hymn, number 89, Come My Way, My Truth, My Life. Rise in body or spirit as you are able. Our reading is titled The History of Church, Including Yours, by Sean Neal Barron. One day your church was born. Maybe it was a gathering of saints called together for the common worship of a wrathful God, ceaselessly praying between bouts of decrying the evils of Christmas or dancing. Or maybe a few brave souls answered a notice in the newspaper, curiosity piqued by the announcement of a religion where free thinking and tolerance were bedrocks. No matter how it happened, your church was born. A gathering of people, humble, caring, anxious, and quirky all at the same time, who had covenanted to be with one another on the journey of life, death, and everything in between. And so it began, a faithful few, beautifully imperfect, called to that central task, that human task, of connecting, loving, serving. It was just a baby, and yet it was thrust deep into the human condition, tasked to hold minds and souls, bodies and hearts, along the roller derby of disease and birth, infighting and joy, and the Christmas pageants. Sometimes all of these at the same time. They gathered to hear the world broken open, for insightful sermons, rejuvenating music, and a community whose fierce devotion to each other's well-being rivaled a mother bear's for her cubs. But it wasn't always like that, of course. There were the trying times, and I don't mean Phyllis or Jack, those stubborn but lovable souls who inhabit the netherworld of committee meetings. No, I mean the trying times. When the church almost split in half over the war or integration, or when the mill left the town vacant, or when the minister crossed that line and people couldn't speak about it for decades. But somehow we're still here, still on the town common, still the church that everyone recognizes, still the one that shows up every time you are called upon. And using the communion silver until you voted to sell it. New people came and they changed things, small things, big things, things that nobody noticed as it happened until suddenly it was hard to even recognize anything anymore. That was a hard moment, a tearful moment. And other things changed too. The proclamations about God, once heard loud from the pulpit, softened. Wrathful became loving. Distant became intimate. Mandatory became optional. After the war, the nursery and RE class rooms were overflowing. Each baby dedicated reminded the church of the incredible beauty of life and the gift this community, all huddled around baby, would bestow upon this child. The history of your church is more a story of the determination of love to break forth than it is of tie-dye or chalices, sermon discussions, or social justice committee meetings. The history of the church is a history of human enterprise, evolving in its sights and sounds, yet revolving always around its core. The history of your church is the gift of potential and momentum, of baggage and personality. The history of your church is the launch pad from which you spring into action or disarray.
Let us now enter into a spirit of meditation and contemplation. Let us calm our breath and then let it lengthen, emptying ourselves as we prepare to be filled. Whatever last week delivered, whatever next week will hold, let us focus on our breath. Let us focus on right now. Let us come back to home, to ourselves, and all that's already been true. Let's take a moment of silence to focus ourselves inwardly. Many of us have joys and concerns that come with us here to church today. The world outside is a boring place right now. There's nothing really much going on, I guess, but I wish that were true, but there's turmoil everywhere, and all of us in our lives have to deal with particular things that are going on, whether good or bad. We bring a lot of things with us to church today, and now we give ourselves a chance to express those joys and concerns, however, maybe silently. We set up a little thing this morning that's a little bit different. We have candles here, and we invite you, if you're so moved, to come forward and light a candle and express a joy and concern to yourself. And we can express those joys and concern to each other later, but we thought we would just have a silent meditation now on our joys and concerns. So you are invited to come forward and light a candle here using the candle in the middle.
the concern. It has been learned that a woman who went by the name of Day, a regular at our fourth Saturday program for years, and who some of us got to know more personally when she attended our winter warming center some years ago, was recently found dead in her tent camp off Albee Street. Our concern for the homeless who live among us should be ongoing.
So the sermon today, or talk, is entitled, A Building is Never a Church, But. I don't mean to hijack the conversation that we're going to have at the meeting a little bit later, but I thought I've had several ideas about this for years, and I thought I would kind of give my thoughts. But like a good Unitarian Universalist, I'm going to present you with a lot of questions, but no answers. So if there are any answers that I give, then I'm not a good Unitarian Universalist. So. Years ago, in my past life, a priest that I used to know and who, Catholic priest who we used to go to talks that he would give, said, theologically, he didn't believe in purgatory because purgatory was was kind of a lazy theological term that the theologians had invented because they didn't they didn't know theologically about a description of a place between heaven and hell. So they invented this dogma that they called purgatory. So he didn't believe in it, but he said there was one person that was in purgatory, and that's the person that first coined the term church for the building. Since church was kind of a collection of all the people that go there and that form the community, and that to him, a building should never constitute what a church is. So that always kind of stuck with me ever since then. So, discussions have come up, amongst our community about our building and our church, and so I wanted to kind of give you my thoughts about what a church is, and from a Unitarian Universalist perspective. So. We're a different religion, I guess, really. We're not the standard religion, and I think religion in general has gone through transformations over the years, severe transformations, especially through the last year and a half, though, through the pandemic. But it used to be that you had a parish church, whatever denomination that you were part of. It was an anchor in your neighborhood. You went to that particular church because you lived in that neighborhood, and especially if you were Catholic, you were bound and officially bound to go to the certain parish that whatever boundary you lived in. So, and that began to change, some years ago. People would kind of shop around and go to the place that they liked the best. And a lot of places, churches were always kind of dependent on the minister, whoever was there, and we kind of became a little bit too dependent on this one person, I think, who kind of set the boundary and set the tone for what the church was. So the church community, the people that constituted the parishioners, kind of got lost, and it became a kind of a show for particular ministers in some denominations, in some churches, not all. So, church in the Unitarian Universalist mode has been a little different. So a lot of churches that I visited throughout Illinois, a lot of them are in brand new buildings. They may have started in some other building, but the buildings were always either torn down or just they've moved to different buildings. As their congregations have grown, buildings have not necessarily been what those particular churches focus on. Although I would have to say that our church is one of the anchored churches of the UU organization and religious tradition in the state of Illinois. So, this church has history that goes far beyond what most churches have. So, although this is not the original building, so we must kind of acknowledge that this church is not that old in terms of the church that has been here in Alton itself. So. A church is anchored in the neighborhood, and I remember discussions with my mother years ago, and she was lamenting the fact that her church was losing members, and I told her I think the one thing that a church needs to do to grow, and I'm not necessarily saying that growth is a good thing, but to grow and to stay stable is to do what you do in the community and be a force in the community. Don't concern yourself with becoming big and, attracting new members just for the sake of attracting new members. I think what a church does is what is reflected in the community and how the community looks at that particular church and depends on it. Our fourth Saturday started off with fourth Saturday lunch, and then morphed into personal care items. I think has kind of anchored us in this community here and helped people recognize that we are a force for good here. So, reading through a couple of books in preparation for today, there was a book that came out some years ago printed by the Unitarian Universalist Association called "Engaging Our Theological Diversity." A Protestant theologian had remarked that Unitarian Universalists were a little thick on ethics and thin on theology. And say that's not a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. So he said, although UUs are not theologically predictable, Unitarian Universalism in its truest is a religion bubbling in a stew of liberal theologies, as we put it. The living tradition we share draws from many sources. Nonetheless, UUs are indeed thick on ethics. The principles and purposes range from justice, equity, and compassion to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, to the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process, to the goal of the world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Unitarian Universalists aim to lead ethical lives of high character and conduct. Our journeys are steered from a moral compass to enrich matters. UU ethical mandates are not separate from, but integral to our religion and our reality. For UU's protest and prayer are two sides of the same coin. So church in our tradition has different meanings than it does in other traditions. As I mentioned earlier about becoming more centric on ministers too, one of the things that I want to bring up now is the fact that without a minister here that we've I think survived pretty good, and we've had a lot of people that have stepped up and done a lot of good things and provided church services here. I want to bring up one model that I know of really well. So the Mount Vernon Church in Mount Vernon, Illinois, has been a Unitarian Universalist fellowship for about at least 20 years now, maybe a little bit more. They've just received their full fellowship in the last year or two. And they've never had a minister there, and they never intend to have a minister. They've done really well with a committed group of people there, and I think it's helped them to because of that, they've been forced to step up. All the people that are there, have become involved, and they've taken ownership in their own church. They're not guided by a particular minister. They're guided by the principles that they use, and they're a very justice-centered church too. They're involved in many things. I've gotten to know a lot of people there over the years through the work that I've been able to do with Unitarian Universalist Action Network in Illinois, and they're a vital part of that too. So that's a paradigm that I think we should think about. It's not necessarily, as I said, I'm not going to stand up here and give you answers and say that's what I think we should do, but I just want to bring up that conversation too, that's ministers can be forces for good, ministers can be forces for bad. In my past church experience, have left a couple of churches because the minister became so toxic to the environment. One church we left because the minister was so toxic, and then we went to another church and the minister followed us there. They put him in the same place, and so that was a sign that said, it's time to leave. Yeah, exactly. And that church closed not long after that too. It was a vital community. It was a church that was very stable, and there was the community of people there were some of the best people that we had been around, previously to coming here. And that church died because of the toxic environment that was created there. So, ministers can be good, ministers can be bad. I think, the UUA, I'm going to, this may not be a good thing to say, but they have too many rules, especially about ministers. So, if anybody from the UUA is listening, you have too many rules. So, the fact that, who can come in and, interim ministers, they can only be here at a certain amount of time, and the fact that there is interim ministers, it's a system that's a little bit stifling. So I think maybe we should have a mass ordination of all of our parishioners, and we will all ordain ourselves ministers. So, Reverend Johnson, Reverend Berkeley, from now on, I think that's that's a thing to think about. So, we've had wonderful ministers in the past in this church, but they've come and gone, and this church is still here, and these people are still here, and a lot of the people that anchor this community are still here, and that's the heart and soul of this church. Whether we're in this building or whether we're somewhere else, this church stays together. And I think through the pandemic, we've noticed that, even though we haven't been in this building and we're just getting back into the building, we've stuck together. And I think the commitment that you have shown and the people that are online have shown to each other, and the commitment that the board has shown has been nothing but absolutely stellar. So those are my thoughts today, and I didn't mean to hijack the conversation in the congregational meeting, but that's when I was scheduled to do the talk today. I haven't been feeling very spiritual lately. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe I've been delved myself into my work more. I thought maybe I would give a lecture about how COVID vaccines work, and I could still do that sometime if you want. But yeah, exactly. As long as that's right. But this kind of popped into my mind, and it's something that I've been thinking about a long time. So glad we had this conversation today. One last reading that I will do here. There's a really good book that many of you know that two Unitarian Universalist ministers produced, and it's called A House for Hope, and they use a house or a building as a metaphor for the church, and so I want to make one last reading from that here. So this is something that one of the authors of this book is a professor at Starr King Unitarian Universalist Theological Seminary in California. I think she may be retired now, but this is something that they greet each new class with as they come through the door on the first day. So I wanted to share this with you. We are here at the threshold. We are here. We have crossed many thresholds already to arrive at this space and time, coming out from identities and locations that didn't embrace the fullness of who we are, coming across distances, boundaries, discoveries that have beckoned us to deeper life and challenge us to change. Coming with our loves, our partners, our children, our memories, our knowledge, our willingness, and our wisdom. Coming to our senses and our awareness of the critical issues that threaten the well-being of Earth's creatures, communities, and cultures. Coming again to decisions, commitments, hopes, determinations that we know matter. We are here at this threshold, the threshold of a house of study where hearts and minds are on fire, the threshold of a house of spirit where prayer and contemplation take us deeper, the threshold of a house of hope for greater justice and compassion in the world, the threshold of a house of history that can inform our present lives and link us to a communion that crosses the boundary of death, the threshold of a house of preparation for the thresholds we will lead others to cross, for the thresholds yet to come, for the thresholds the world stands on, poised now as always, between the possibilities of violence and the possibilities of peace. Come, let us cross this threshold together. And let us think about how we together, our church, We together are the First Unitarian Church of Alton, but not the building, but the people are the church.
We offer the gentle reminder that this community of faith is supported only by your giving. We need each other. In times of trial, we need each other even more. You can mail your gift to the church at Post Office Box 494, Alton, Illinois, 62002, or you can give electronically by searching for First Unitarian Church of Alton on the Givelify app, or by using PayPal on our website. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. Please join me in our offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. Please rise in body or spirit as you are able to sing our second hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
We have one announcement today that I'm aware of, so if anybody else has another announcement. Okay. So the first announcement is that our service next week will be held at the Moose Lodge in Edwardsville. The address is 7371 Marine Road at 10 a.m. And Reverend Robin Berkeley will be speaking. We will be helping with the Lodge Winter Chicken Dinner as a church fundraiser. Peg Flock may still need some volunteers to help with the dinner and the bake sale, but please respond to her UU Friends posts. The meal includes fried chicken, mashed potatoes and gravy, corn, green beans, and fresh salad. The cost is adults $10 and children $5. Baked goods will be also on sale, and they will be provided by church members. And vegetarian options too, that's good. All right. And Mary has an announcement too. Oh. Do you want me to read it? Two announcements. If you're a visitor and you want to get on our email list, to get on the weekly flyers and monthly newsletter, just fill out the visitor form that's within the hymnal there. And if anybody wants a new name tag, please fill out a blue name tag request form on the visitor table in the fellowship hall. So that's a good idea. Can we add pronouns to the new name tags too?
That's a great idea.
I think we should do that.
Yeah, we'll add pronouns to it.
If anybody's
I
interested.
think it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please join me in the unison words for extinguishing the chalice. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. Today for our benediction and our postlude, I'm going to do a song on the guitar, if that's okay. I haven't picked this up in several months, so hopefully it'll be okay. So this song is number 34 in your book, and you can follow along. So I'm going to do the first verse, and then join in with me on the second and the third verse. This is number 34, Though I May Speak. Though I may speak with bravest fire, and have the